Global climate change is an obvious problem that the planet is facing today. Climate change is happening, the Earth is warming, and the evidence is clear. Many believe that a slight rise in temperature is nothing to be alarmed about. However, global warming is just one aspect of climate change as a whole. This warming is what causes climate patterns to change, but it is not the entire problem. Climate change can refer to any major changes in temperature, precipitation, or wind patterns, among many other effects. These are the signs that many choose to ignore. The people who choose to dismiss this problem are the same people who are causing it. Humans are largely responsible for the recent climate change that the Earth is enduring today. Over the last century, human activities have released unprecedented amounts of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Some of these gases include water vapor, carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide. These gases absorb sunlight as it reaches Earth's surface instead of allowing it to be reflected back into space. They create a blanket around Earth, making it warmer than it usually should be. This is what is known as the greenhouse effect. It is important to realize that our actions have consequences. Climate change is a rather recent threat, with real effects only becoming evident within the last century. The first global warming trend was reported in the 1930s. This report compared the modern temperatures to those from the past and revealed that there was a visible increase. However, scientists attributed this increase to a phase in a cycle of rising and falling temperatures and dismissed the problem. In 1965, there was a meeting held in Boulder, Colorado, to discuss the causes of climate change. This was the first organized event that showed acknowledgement of a problem. This meeting was a sign that some people wanted to discuss and attempt to do something about climate change. The issue of climate change did not have much of a political side until the first major policy was enacted in 1987. The Montreal Protocol is a global agreement to protect the stratospheric ozone layer. The stratosphere is a layer of the ozone that filters out UV radiation, which causes skin cancer and cataracts. This protocol imposed international restrictions on emissions of ozone-destroying gases. It is the first treaty to ever be universally ratified by all countries in the world. The unprecedented global participation involved in addressing this environmental problem is the reason why it was so successful. Due to the regulations that were imposed through this treaty, the ozone layer is on its path to repair. The International Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, is the international body for assessing the science behind climate change. The panel was created in 1888 and is responsible for providing a scientific basis for all governments to establish policies related to the climate. In 1995, the panel concluded that there is a human-caused greenhouse effect on global warming. This was the first time that human activity was outrightly blamed for climate change. Greenhouse gas emissions from human development and industrialization were finally being recognized as a cause of global climate change. Ignoring this science, another organization was formed in 2004. The Non-Governmental International Panel on Climate Change, the NIPCC, is an international panel of non-government scientists and scholars who have come together to present a comprehensive, authoritative, and realistic assessment of the science and economics of global warming. The NIPCC states that there is not a real consensus on the impact that the combustion of fossil fuels has on global climate change. They believe that science is an interdisciplinary subject and that very few scholars have mastery of more than one of these fields. This organization also thinks that the global climate models that governments use to create policies overestimate the sensitivity of climate to carbon dioxide. Let it be known that the NIPCC is funded by the Koch brothers, who make a profit off of fossil fuels. Climate change has had various impacts on the environment, some more severe than others. However, if continued, they will all eventually take a significant toll on the planet. Industrial Revolution, we have relied on fossil fuels such as natural gas, oil, and coal for our everyday needs. Carbon emissions from these fossil fuels are the single greatest cause of global warming. Technological innovations such as smartphones, computers, and iPads have also contributed to climate change. With mass amounts of factories needed to keep up with our consumerism culture, carbon emissions have greatly increased. Developing countries in Asia and Africa are also beginning to participate in the usage of new gadgets, which is good for the companies as well as the people, but is also having a negative effect on the planet. Modern transportation such as cars, planes, and trains allow us to transport goods and people at rather quick rates, but also depend on fossil fuels. In the United States, the travel sector contributes to 1/3 of the national greenhouse gas emissions. Worldwide, 15% of total emissions come from cars, planes, trains, and ships. In addition to all of the environmental damage that results from global climate change, there is a sizable amount of social distress that it causes as well. People's everyday lives are structured around the climate that they are used to. They are sensitive to extremes that fall outside of their comfort zone. With the recent trends of global warming, this climate change can be expected to affect all different aspects of life. Geographic location is one factor that can determine one's vulnerability to climate change. Coastal regions are specifically vulnerable to the change that has been occurring. The climate change that is taking place is projected to increase the frequency and intensity of extreme weather conditions. These coastal areas are now more sensitive to coastal storms, droughts, air pollution, and heat waves. Communities that revolve around agriculture and tourism may also be severely affected. Climate change greatly threatens natural resources. The change in weather could harm climate-dependent agricultural crops such as corn, wheat, and cotton. The tourism sector also suffers because of the changing precipitation patterns that come along with global climate change. These irregular weather patterns will limit recreational activities in communities that rely on that for revenue. The rise in sea level and storm surges will cause beaches to suffer, resulting in a significant loss of income for these regions. The general cost of living also rises because of the changing weather patterns. The cost of insurance has increased due to the higher frequency and intensity of weather events. It is harder for people to insure their homes and properties in these regions where storms are likely to occur. Climate change is a serious issue and needs to be addressed. Many organizations have taken steps to decrease their global footprint, but more actions need to be taken. Obama's administration offered many policy changes in order to combat this issue, but with Trump rolling back on ample amounts of the legislation, it is unclear where the future of climate change will go.